Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology with Henry Seltzer. I'm he. And we want to take a look at this full moon that's coming up pretty quickly now. So let's take a look at the chart. So this is a very interesting full moon. I want to call your attention to these 29s. Of course, this is the natural chart with Aries on the horizon, not the actual rising in the west coast, which is right here at 17 degrees of Gemini. So the sun would be in the 12th house according to this particular. If you happen to be on the west coast, that would be true for you. 6:53 a.m. here on the west coast on Thursday the 23rd. So what I wanted to call your attention to was, interestingly, of course, the 2 degree mark, 2 degrees 55 minutes, but 2 degrees nonetheless, of the sun opposite the moon is matched by the 2 degree mark of Pluto here at 2 degrees and 0 though, so about almost a degree apart. But anyway, there's a similarity in the degree, which is called a partile trine or a partile sextile. And it's important, and it does mean that there's a very close support of this position of Pluto, which is a kind of an important position of Pluto newly into Aquarius. And then the other thing we want to make sure we note is Jupiter with Venus at 29 degrees, very close together, of Taurus, and Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. Wow. So we have a very strong, the last degree is an important degree of the sign. You could say that it presages the next degree, which is the first degree of the next sign, in this case Gemini, where the sun is. So this is a very close Jupiter-Venus conjunction with the sun. Jupiter and Venus, the two benefics, coming together at this 29 degree mark, kind of fated, kind of exciting, kind of important. Having Neptune also in this picture being a perfect sextile. And then I want to call your attention as well to the fact that the 0 degree mark of Gemini, which is this midpoint, and which is very, not exact midpoint, but the 0 degree mark of Gemini and of Aries, you see, does connect to this 0 degree mark of Scorpio, where Haumea resides, one of these new planets that I've been researching. Haumea being in perfect square with Pluto. So what can we make of all this? And to me, it's also important what's going on in the world right now. I mean, we have in many places, in many different ways, the public being stirred, getting involved in the situations. And we have the two wars that are going on, the war in Ukraine, where, the United States has been criticized perhaps for fighting what's called a proxy war with Russia. But on the other hand, there is this way of looking at it that Russia invaded a sovereign country on its border to try to increase its territory, and that's actually against international law. So, to me, it's important that Ukraine not be just absorbed in Russia, and so that has to be worked out. And right now they're fighting to work it out. And then the terrible situation in Gaza, the Palestinians, of course, that attack by the radical Hamas, to Israel, the goal of Hamas to wipe out Israel and not have a country there seems unrealistic. There's a country there now. On the other hand, seemingly the goal of Israel, not to allow Palestinian autonomy, a two-state solution, so to speak, disenfranchising the other side of that population, the Arab population and the Palestinians, that seems unrealistic. So it's really a conundrum there. I'm not trying to be political here, but I am trying to allude to the fact that the public is very involved in many ways. In this country, we have the left and the right represented, the centrist left, centrist and left, represented by the Democrats, and the kind of right-wing side of the Republicans. That's an oppositional situation. We have people divided in this country on that basis, what's to support. And so my attention is really called to the fact that there's so much public involvement right now, and here we have this new moon with a very strong, because of the support for Pluto in this Sun and Moon degree, because of the support of Haumea, you see it's a yod, very close yod, from the 29th degree of Pisces and the 29th degree of Taurus, rather, to this 0 degree mark of Scorpio. And so we have this ongoing square between Haumea and Pluto. I've talked about it before. I believe that it has to do with finding what is our real moral obligation. What do we need, from on both a collective and an individual level? What do we need to really accomplish and really be able to do in our lives that is, in terms of not just achievement in a material way or monetary way, but also achievement in terms of what's right. What is the right thing? Can we tell the truth? These new nature planets, both Haumea and Makemake, this is Makemake here at 8 degrees, 55 minutes of Libra. They both have to do with connection to nature, I found, in a sense of connection also to natural law, to a sense of what's right, inner moral commitment, right action, right relationship, and truth-telling. And seeing Haumea in this square with Pluto, you see, it's been a time, has it not, of really looking into this has been going on for a year now, so it's really looking into whether it's okay to lie in pursuit of one's political advantage. I mean, I think that's been a big issue in this country. It's an issue in Israel as well. There's a question mark there of the sincerity and what's really happening and what is the intention and how can civilians be protected if there's still a war to wipe out, as they say, Hamas. That has to be negotiated in some way. So there's just a tremendous amount of public attention right now on trying to find the way forward, trying to find the right thing. And this does give us a little bit of optimism. We do have Jupiter prominent in this full moon with Venus. So in our individual lives as well, we can feel that sense of, and of course also the Sagittarius full moon ruled by Jupiter. So we do have a sense here that maybe there might be somehow a way that if we do adhere to our own individual sense of what's right, it may help the whole picture. And, in this, I'm also reminded of the situation in all the campuses across the country, because, as you all know, in America, what's happening, especially elsewhere as well, we have all this campus unrest. It reminded me so much of the 60s. I live here in Santa Cruz. I walked into the campus the other day, and it was tent city as far as you could see, and gatherings, and a big whiteboard that had scribbled on it, "Free University," and there was somebody lecturing, and there were students attending, and it was a talk about kind of the. Well, it reminded me so much of the 60s and the opposition to the Vietnam War. In this case, it's the opposition to continuing support of genocide, which you could call it that, in Palestine. And the whole, I think people of good faith are kind of outraged at times at situations of poverty that are allowed to exist, situations of have versus have-nots that are allowed to exist where the haves have so much more and get more and keep increasing. There's more income inequality in this country today than there ever has been. So these are the things that I think need to be addressed. The pendulum needs to swing the other way. And I don't want to get political here, but I do feel like these planets, these new planets that have come along at this time, to kind of remind us that there is a moral compass that we need to tune into. And I do feel it's like the 60s. And sure enough, we have prominent Pluto right now. It's just entered into Aquarius. We have prominent Uranus right now. It was featured in the new moon. It's been featured in many of the new moons. It was close to the degree of the new moon that was recent before crossing into Gemini. And so I just feel, and what we have right now also, by the way, is Uranus in this configuration of this full moon is making a very close sesquiquadrate with 2/10 of a degree, so very close sesquiquadrate from 23 degrees, you see, to 8. In other words, we add 15 and gets what we get. We get 38, which is 8 degrees of the next sign, which is a trine. So 15 plus 120 of the trine is 135 degrees, which is the sesquiquadrate. So we had both Maki representing a sort of a pragmatic approach, or could even be activist approach to making things happen in terms of the belief that we have the possibility of a culture that represents a way of being in this world that can be kind. We can be kind to nature's creatures and kind to each other, and that's the nature way in a certain way. Although, nature is also rough, but it's rough, but it has its coherence. There's a coherence to it, which we are sometimes lacking, I believe, in this culture when we go so far into the materialistic, anti-spiritual, just purely logical, purely inventive, purely scientific, in the sense of just making something happen, like the medical advances. They're great. Computer advances, wonderful. AI, amazing. Could be increased productivity. But you do find that there's something lacking there, with that lacking that concept of soul that's so important. So that's the message today, that we have both of these new nature planets very activated right now. We have Uranus activated right now, and we also have Pluto, and we are seeing some sense of what we saw in the 60s when Uranus and Pluto were very active as well, being in conjunction with each other in Virgo. And now we have Pluto newly in the sign of Aquarius, representing, of course, that sense that we have of kind of coming together as a human tribe that is not the pure independent tribes. It's very much like John Lennon was able to say, that icon of the 60s really, that there was a way to imagine no countries. And some kind of a world government, which I think is kind of on the way, and we see the evidence of it. So we have this tug of war, do we not? We have things that are going on in terms of a better way of living, a better way of being in this world, a better way of relating to each other. And we have as well the reaction against that, the backlash, the tendency to keep the old structures in place, the prejudices and limitations in place. So I think that's what I have for you now. I mean, we do have these planets changing signs. Pretty soon, Neptune is going to be in Aries, at the 0 point of Aries. And then pretty soon, too, Saturn is going to join Neptune at the Aries point. And that's coming. It's almost here now, because we do have only a 10-degree margin between them. So this is, again, what's happening with Neptune, idealism, Saturn, realism, and trying to find an amalgam of the two as we head into the remainder of what is a rather intense decade of the 2020s. So let's transition back and thanks for watching. Take care.